Good afternoon, students. Welcome to Vidhigya. आज today we'll be discussing one of the most important topic, one of the most important event that has happened in the last week. Quad Summit has happened in Tokyo recently, and in the Quad Summit, before the Quad Summit, United States of America has come up with a new initiative for the Indo Pacific region, and that initiative is Indo Pacific Economic Forum. In this lecture, we'll be discussing what exactly is Indo-Pacific Economic Forum, what is the region of Indo-Pacific, why is it so important for all these nations, and also very basic information about history and evolution of the grouping that is called Quad. Apart from that, we'll also discuss Indo-Pacific Economic Forum, its significance, potential challenges that it might face in the future, and of course, if there are challenges, their way forward as well. So we'll start with today's lecture. Yes. So, before we delve into what exactly is Indo-Pacific Economic Forum, we need to understand what is this grouping called Quad. So, Quad is first of all a grouping of four important nations: India, United States, Australia, and Japan. So, the origins of this Quad goes back to 2004. Look, India has been conducting Operation Exercise Malabar with US for quite some time. Apart from that, in 2004 tsunami, all these four countries participated together in the rescue and relief operations. So that is where we can trace the origin of the idea of Quad. Again, 2007, they first met on the sidelines of ASEAN. ASEAN summit happened, and on the sidelines of ASEAN, we find that all these four nations have also engaged. But this idea of Quad remained on the back foot for various reasons, because Australia was not very enthusiastic at that time. China was still a rising economy, and not a lot of people looked at China as a very big threat. So around 2007, Quad was still an idea which was yet to develop into a full-fledged security organization. Now, in 2012, Japan called Quad the Asia's democratic security diamond. So if you see this diagram, it looks much like a diamond. If you connect all the dots to all these four countries, you'll find that it looks much like a diamond. So Japan called it an Asia's democratic security diamond. So when we say security diamond, there has to be a security element to it. And that security element, without naming the country, it has always been China. So the rise of China and the common interest and concerns of these four nations is what exactly brings these four nations together to form Quad. Now in 2017, this idea of Quad was revived. Now there's a difference. 2008 to 2017, China has been rising very quickly, and China has been asserting itself. And apart from that, China has also come up with an initiative called Belt and Road Initiative. And further, they have been asserting themselves territorially in the South China Sea, East China Sea. There has been, territorial assertion when it comes to India's border as well. It has been entering into trade wars with US. So yes, all these countries are certainly concerned about rise of China, and the fact that China's rise is not peaceful. Then comes 2020, where India, US, and Japan is conducting a naval exercise called Exercise Malabar. So this Exercise Malabar, which was initially started it was a naval exercise between India and US. Now Japan has also included. So 2020, we find India, US, Japan, as well as Australia. I'm sorry, Australia was the one that also joined the Malabar exercise. Previously, this Malabar exercise was between three countries: India, US, and Japan. But in 2020 was 1 year where Australia actively participated in Exercise Malabar. So that basically brings all the Quad countries together in the Indo-Pacific region, conducting military exercises together. All right. So in this background, there was a Quad summit in 2021 as well, where they came up with a joint statement called the Spirit of Quad. We'll soon discuss what the Spirit of Quad is and the key objectives of the Spirit of Quad. Then in 2020, finally, the last week, where the Quad summit happened in Tokyo. All right, so this is how the idea of Quad evolved over a period of time. And in this idea of Quad, that is where we find that this Indo-Pacific Economic Forum, how Indo-Pacific Economic Forum is going to be the future of the economic cooperation between these Quad countries. Now coming back to Quad ka core objective. What is the core objective of Quad? To establish a rules-based global order, freedom of navigation, and a liberal trading system. So basically, all these countries, what they want, the trading system. They all trade through Indo-Pacific. A significant part of our trading happens through waters. So जो पानी है का रास्ता है, जो oceans हैं, it is important that they are secured. So it is important for all the four nations that the nations that the navigation, the freedom of navigation is there. There is freedom of overflight. Also, that the entire Indian Ocean, Indian Indo-Pacific region is free and open for each and every country. It is inclusive and it does not allow one country to hold other countries. Does not allow one country to hamper other countries' trade interests. Coming to spirit of Quad, what does spirit of Quad actually means? It means number one, maritime security, combating the COVID-19, especially vis-a-vis the vaccine diplomacy. Then there is addressing the risk of climate change. Climate change is a common cause of concern for all these nations. Creating an ecosystem for investment in the region. Investment more than higher the level of investments, higher the level of economic growth, more the level of trade between the countries. Boosting technological innovations. Yes, 5G is coming. Cyber security. The world of tomorrow will be determined by the critical technologies that are evolving, whether it is machine learning, whether it is artificial intelligence, whether it is 5G network, 6G network, all of these things, quantum computing, all of these things require that these countries, which are also tech innovators, which are also leaders in technology, should also come together and participate together for further innovations. So when we say Quad, the core geographical focus area, the geography that comes to our mind is the Indo-Pacific region. Now, Indo-Pacific region is the geography that comes to our mind when we talk about Quad. That is why the Indo-Pacific Economic Forum, the United States of America found it right to launch this idea of Indo-Pacific Economic Forum at no other summit, at no other platform, but at the platform called Quadrilateral Security Dialogue. Now, what is Indo-Pacific? Now, we've talked a lot about Indo-Pacific. What exactly is this region of Indo-Pacific? So, broadly speaking, Indo-Pacific is nothing but a region that connects Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. It is also called as Kilimanjaro to California. So, what is Kilimanjaro? Kilimanjaro is on the eastern coast of Africa, and we find California on the western coast of US. The entire region, the landmass, the water body that comes in between these two regions is the Indo-Pacific region. If you see, and now we will understand why exactly this region has suddenly become so important in international relations. So first of all, choke points. It has some very important choke points. What are these choke points? Look, if we talk about choke points, these are some of the very small straits through which these trade, जो ships होती है ना, they pass through these choke points. So if you stop, अगर इस area को choke कर दिया, then the trade also get choked. That is why they are called choke points. They are very narrow areas through which these ships are going through. All right. So if you choke this area, the entire trade gets choked. So इसके कुछ examples हम यहाँ पर देखेंगे. There is Strait of Malacca that connects Andaman Sea with South China Sea, or you can say it connects Indian Ocean with the Pacific Ocean. So this is Strait of Malacca. Similarly, another important strait is Strait of Hormuz, which connects Persian Gulf with the Arabian Sea, or you can say this Gulf of Oman. Strait of Hormuz is very important because this entire region, the Persian Gulf, is known for its oil exports. And oil is a fundamental raw material for almost all the industries. And countries like India and China and US are excessively dependent on this kind of imported oil. Another important is Taiwan Strait. Taiwan Strait is between China and Taiwan, connects East China Sea with South China Sea. This again is an important sea lines of communication. Then there is Bab el Mandeb. Bab el Mandeb. So this connects the Red Sea with Gulf of Aden, and this further gets connected to Mediterranean Sea through a strait called Suez Canal. All right. So these are the various choke points. They are very, very important from trade point of view. They are very, very important from economic point of view. Hence, these countries have to make sure that these choke points are secured and free and open at all times. Coming back to, we've already discussed oil trade and energy requirements. These choke points, Indo-Pacific region is very important for oil imports of India, China, and other countries, Japan. So we need to make sure that the Indo-Pacific region is free and open and secure and inclusive for all the countries. Next important, this entire region is very rich in resources, rich in fisheries, polymetallic nodules, rare earth metals, all of these things. So polymetallic nodules are nothing but small nodules जिसके अराउंड एक मैंगनीज नोड्यूल्स होते हैं जिसके अराउंड आयरन निकल कोबाल्ट ऑल दिस मेटल्स आर अवेलेबल और ये डीप सी बेड में पाया जाता है. सिमिलरली यू हैव रेयर अर्थ मेटल्स भी काफी सारे इंडियन ओशन के आसपास पाए जाते हैं एंड दीज रेयर अर्थ मेटल्स आर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट रॉ मटेरियल फॉर द सेमीकंडक्टर इंडस्ट्री. नॉट जस्ट सेमीकंडक्टर इंडस्ट्री बट इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स इंडस्ट्री एंड इवन ऑटोमोबाइल इंडस्ट्री. ठीक है, तो इसके हिसाब से रिसोर्स रिच रीजन भी है, इसीलिए भी इसकी सिक्योरिटी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. चाइना's rise. Now China's rise has been a cause of concern for a lot of countries because it is not a peaceful rise. A country grows, no one will have an issue. If it rises, no one will have an issue. But when it grows at the cost of territorial integrity and sovereignty of particular nations, a set of nations, then that is problematic for them. Then that is not a peaceful rise. Then something has to be done about it. And China has been asserting itself more prominently in this area that is called Indo-Pacific. All right. So there is another important, it is also the fastest growing, some of the fastest growing economies of the world, whether it is India, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia. These are very big markets and fastest growing developing economies. So all these economies are also in this Indo-Pacific region, which again makes it very, very important from trade point of view, from geo-economic point of view. Big market. When nations grow, their per capita income rises, which also means that more and more people are getting richer, which means they have greater disposable incomes. Hence, they are a big market for what? Consumer goods. So European Union countries, the America, other developed nations, they look up to this Indo-Pacific region and the countries in the Indo-Pacific region. For what? For a big market. They look up to this country for investment as well as for market. Now coming back to our topic of today, Indo-Pacific Economic Forum. The Indo-Pacific Economic Forum was launched by United States of America last week. इस Indo-Pacific United States of America ने लॉन्च किया है क्वाड समिट टोक्यो में, एंड इसमें अभी तक जो 13 इकोनॉमीज जिनने पार्टिसिपेट करने का प्रॉमिस किया है, जो 13 इकोनॉमीज दैट आर गोइंग टू पार्टिसिपेट आर वियतनाम, साउथ कोरिया, जापान, फिलीपींस, ब्रूनेई, ऑस्ट्रेलिया, न्यूजीलैंड, इंडोनेशिया, सिंगापुर, थाईलैंड, इंडिया, Malaysia and US. Okay, so these are the countries that are going to participate, and if you look at it very closely, we'll find that Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos are not part of it. They're not part of it because they have dispensations, the military dispensation in this country, the government, they are pro-China governments. Okay, so in a way, even though IPEF doesn't directly tell that we are against China, but the kind of constitution that they have, the members they have, and the kind of objectives they have, you will realize that it is essentially targeted towards no other country but China. Okay. Another important, the nature of this. First of all, very important, this is not a formal trade agreement. IPEF is not a formal trade agreement. जैसे कि you had RCEP, you had Regional Comprehensive Economic Participation, you had TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership. All of these things, these are what? Regional trade agreements. These are free trade agreements, but it's not a free trade agreement. This is just an economic cooperation in whichever field possible. We'll read about the various pillars in which they are trying to cooperate. So since they are not a free trade agreement, they will not be discussing reduction in tariffs. There is no need to participate in all the 4 pillars. Also, there are 4 pillars of IPF and the countries do not have to participate in all the 4 pillars. Now we'll look at what the 4 pillars are. First of all, there is connected economy. They want to connect the economy and they are looking at what? Digital connectivity, digital economy. So the idea of connected economy revolves around digital economy. Now these countries, they are also going to exchange data. So there are issues related to data localization. There are issues related to privacy. There are issues related to cross-border flow of data. Now Facebook is coming to India. They're taking that data outside of India. Okay, so all these issues are there, and US through this forum and various negotiations will try to address various issues and concerns that are there for various countries, for all the countries that are participating. Another important thing is supply chain. Now, resilient economy. They want to create a resilient economy, an economy that is not overly dependent on particular country. This becomes very, very important, especially in the context of COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 pandemic, we saw suddenly the countries in the world got closed. Instead of globalization, we see a closed economy. Because of this closed economy, what happened was, unlike the previous era where there was open trade between countries, before COVID, there was open trade between countries. So we were dependent on China for few things, especially very essential products like active pharmaceutical ingredients for our, you know, APIs, which are basically raw materials for the pharmaceutical industry that we have. Even not just that, China may raw material for rare earth metals. Rare earth metal ka China is one of the biggest producers. So if you do not have rare earth metals, semiconductors cannot be built. Semiconductors नहीं होंगे तो जो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक इक्विपमेंट्स है बहुत सारे दुनिया भर में बनते हैं, ताइवान में बनता है, जापान में बनता है, यूएस में, इंडिया में, दे कैन नॉट बी मेड. दैट इज वाई वी फाउंड शॉर्टेज ऑफ ऑटोमोबाइल्स. ये सब चीजें हमने न्यूज में पढ़ी थी. सो इन सबको टैकल करने के लिए दे आर ट्राइंग टू क्रिएट अ रेजिलिएंट इकोनॉमी. Next pillar is clean economy. Clean economy basically kuch nahi. Climate change is a major factor that affects all of us, that is going to affect all of us in the future. So whatever trade or whatever economy that we are looking forward to, we must make sure that it is clean. Whatever economic growth we are looking forward to, it must be clean, it must be decarbonized, and the carbon footprint of it must be as low as possible. Then comes the idea of fair economy. Most of the countries are very fed up of what? Tax evasion. So tax evasion, because interconnectivity के कारण वो एक जगह से tax havens अपने पैसा transfer कर देते हैं tax havens में, because of corruption and all those things. They are laundering money, black money है. Even crime networks, criminal networks are using these, this network of transferring money from one country to another, and they are avoiding taxes as well. So these countries are really fed up of it. This is something that affects all of these countries. So it is also trying to create what? A fair economy. A fair economy where there is effective tax and any anti-money laundering regime. Further, there is exchange of tax information. यहाँ से tax उठा के अगर US में transfer किया हुआ, यहाँ से funds उठा के, यहाँ से income उठा के, then there can be exchange of information. They can trace कि exactly ये पैसा आ कहाँ से रहा है, अपने अपने jurisdiction में उसको essentially tax किया जा सके. ठीक है? बेनिफिशियल ओनरशिप रिकमेंडेशंस. बेनिफिशियल ओनरशिप कुछ नहीं होता है, यू नीड टू आइडेंटिफाई. कुछ होते हैं बेनामी ट्रांजैक्शंस जो अपने नाम पे नहीं करके हम किसी और के नाम पे करते हैं, सो एज टू अवॉइड टैक्स, सो एज टू हाइड द ब्लैक मनी. बट एंड बेनिफिशियल ओनरशिप इज एक्चुअल ओनर कौन है उसका. जो बेनामी ट्रांजैक्शन में देर इज अ बेनामी, किसी और के नाम पे आपने रखा है, बट देर इज एन एक्चुअल ओनर ऑफ दैट प्रॉपर्टी, उसको बेनिफिशियल ओनर कहते हैं. तो उसको भी ट्रेस किया जा सकता है, उसको भी ट्रैक किया जा सकता है इफ द कंट्रीज इन दिस IPEF they start coordinating with each other. What is the significance of IPEF? The significance is it is going to help us in decoupling from China's over dependence. हमने अभी अभी बात करी थी चाइना पे, we are overly dependent all of these economies. इससे decouple करना जरूरी है. Coupling, decoupling. So they are trying to decouple their supply chains from the over dependence that they already have on China. Next is 2000. Now what we see is China weaponizes this trade. कैसे? उनको पता है कि इनके 2010 में जापान से कॉन्फ्लिक्ट हुआ किसी बात को लेकर, टेरिटोरियल डिस्प्यूट के कारण. सेंकाकू आइलैंड्स के टेरिटोरियल डिस्प्यूट है इनका ईस्ट चाइना सी में. तो इसके रिलेटेड इनका जैसी डिस्प्यूट का इनने क्या किया, जो रॉ मटेरियल होता है, कौन सा रॉ मटेरियल? रेयर अर्थ मेटल्स. तो रेयर अर्थ मेटल्स का एक्सपोर्ट टू जापान दे स्टॉप्ड. एंड वी ऑल नो जापान इज अ हब ऑफ इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स एंड ऑटोमोबाइल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग. तो रेयर अर्थ मेटल्स ही नहीं आएंगे तो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स मैन्युफैक्चरिंग उनकी इफेक्ट होगी. सो दे ट्राई टू व्हाट? अपने एक पॉलिटिकल ऑब्जेक्टिव को फुलफिल करने के लिए दे वेपनाइज दिस ट्रेड का सिस्टम. तो ऐसा अगर फ्यूचर में ना हो, उसके लिए you need an alternative, and IPEF is going to provide that alternative. It will help US to regain its dominant position in geopolitics. US over a period of time has been losing its position, and China on the other hand has been rising in their position, geopolitical situation. So what happens is, what has happened is US की जो एक absence रही है for in a lot of trade deals in the recent past, उसको भी tackle करने के लिए US has come up with this idea of IPEF to reassert itself that yes, I am the superpower, not China, and to reassert itself by cooperating with these economies which have got overly dependent with China. Okay? Then reclaim economic leadership. We have already discussed this point. Then CPT, there is Trans-Pacific Partnership, जिसमें से US ने Trump regime के time withdraw कर लिया था, because of which that Trans-Pacific Partnership came to be known as CPTPP, which is Comprehensive CPTPP is Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership, and RCEP is Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. This RCEP and CPTPP, अगर आप देखेंगे तो इसमें से यूएस बाहर हो गया, और आरसीईपी में से इंडिया ने लास्ट मोमेंट पे बाहर हो गया। आरसीईपी 2019 में निगोशिएट हुआ था, सीपीटीपीपी अराउंड 2018। तो ये जो दोनों बड़े बड़े रीजनल फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट्स है, इनसे इंडिया भी बाहर हो चुका है एंड यूएस भी बाहर हो चुका है। नाउ इंडिया एंड यूएस, दे आर लूजिंग आउट ऑन समथिंग, so they are using this platform of IPEF so as to ensure that they become part of the supply chain without becoming part of CPTPP and RCEP. So IPEF also provides an alternative to these free trade agreements. सिग्निफिकेंस, डिजिटल इकोनॉमी के रूल्स ऑफ द रोड ले डाउन करने के लिए आईपीएफ इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। फ्यूचर आईपीएफ का रहेगा, डिजिटल इकोनॉमी का जो भी फ्यूचर है उसके जो रूल्स होंगे उसको सिक्योर करना, उसको एस्टैब्लिश करना एक मेजर काम रहने वाला आईपीएफ का। देन देर इज रेजिलियंट सप्लाई चेन्स का एक मेजर इशू है। सप्लाई चेन्स हमने ऑलरेडी डिस्कस किया है दैट दीज सप्लाई चेन्स आर ओवरली डिपेंडेंट ऑन सर्टेन कंट्रीज जो हु आर वेपनाइजिंग दोस दैट पार्ट ऑफ दैट डिपेंडेंस ऑन देम। तो हमें क्या करना है, वी हैव टू गेट अलोंग विथ लाइक माइंडेड कंट्रीज जैसे इंडिया, ऑस्ट्रेलिया, जापान एंड यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका। वी आर ऑल डेमोक्रेटिक नेशंस, वी हैव सिमिलर कंसर्न्स, वी हैव सिमिलर interests, so we are not going to weaponize our trade. Hence we should find alternative to China. We must diversify our supply chains so as to reduce our dependence on China. ये हमने ऑलरेडी डिस्कस कर लिया। ट्रांसपेरेंसी एंड फेयर टैक्सेशन, टैक्सेशन रेजिम जो है वो फेयर होनी चाहिए सो दैट कंट्रीज कैन टैक्स द वेल्थ दैट इज क्रिएटेड इन देयर कंट्री। वेल्थ जो क्रिएट हो रही है उसको प्रॉपरली टैक्स कर पाए अगर, देन इट कैन बी री इन्वेस्टेड इनटू द इकोनॉमी सो एज टू कंटिन्यू द वर्चुअस साइकिल ऑफ इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ। Then Quad Plus, we already know what Quad is. Then there is something called Quad Plus. Quad Plus में कुछ नहीं है, there are other countries apart from Quad which have similar interests and concerns. For example, New Zealand, for example, South Korea, for example, Israel, Taiwan. So these are some of the countries that form the Quad Plus. Although Quad Plus कोई एक ऐसा बहुत particularly decided कुछ वो नहीं है organization, but Quad Plus में broadly ये countries आती हैं which have similar interests and concerns, which are also democracies by the way. Then comes the problem of climate change. Climate change को भी बढ़ावा देने, climate change के adaptation और mitigation को बढ़ावा देने के लिए भी IPEF is going to be very very significant. Mitigation adaptation क्या होता है? Climate change अगर हो रहा है तो carbon emissions कम करना है, that is mitigation. कार्बन एमिशंस कम करना है तो मिटिगेशन। बट ऑलरेडी खूब सारा क्लाइमेट चेंज हो चुका है, तो जो हो चुका है उसको अडेप्ट करना भी जरूरी है, दैट इज अडेप्टेशन। अब अडेप्ट करना है तो यू नीड टेक्नोलॉजी। द डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज आर गोइंग टू नीड हाईटेक हाईटेक फैसिलिटीज, हाईटेक रिसोर्सेज। हु हैज दिस रिसोर्सेज, हाईटेक फैसिलिटीज एंड रिसोर्सेज? डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज लाइक यूएस, developed countries like Japan. So US and Japan and Australia, they have an important role to play when it comes to what? Technology transfer. फिर एनर्जी एफिशिएंसी, एनर्जी एफिशिएंसी वी ऑल नो वन ऑफ द बिगेस्ट कार्बन एमिटर इज व्हाट? द एनर्जी, दिस ट्रांसपोर्ट इंडस्ट्री। ट्रांसपोर्ट इंडस्ट्री जो है उसको एनर्जी एफिशिएंट बनाना जरूरी है, ठीक है। तो दीज आर सम ऑफ द इंपॉर्टेंट सिग्निफिकेंसेस व्हाई आईपीएफ इज गोइंग टू बी वेरी वेरी इंस्ट्रूमेंटल इन द कमिंग फ्यूचर। इंडिया के लिए पर्टिकुलरली हमने ऑलरेडी डिस्कस किया है कि एशिया पैसिफिक की सप्लाई चेन का इंडिया पार्ट हो सकता है। इंडिया ने आरसीईपी निगोशिएशन से विड्रॉ कर लिया बिकॉज overall that trade agreement was not in India's favor. There were some benefits, there were some drawbacks, but the net of benefits and drawbacks was not in favor of India. So India withdrew from the RCEP negotiations. But despite having withdrawn from the RCEP negotiations, India can still be a part of the supply chain in the Asia Pacific region. And how India can establish that, how India can achieve that? Through what is called as Indo Pacific Economic Forum. So IPEF might actually prove very beneficial for India in the coming future. Like other countries, India also has a China concern. India is also dependent on China for some very important raw materials. I have already discussed APIs, active pharmaceutical ingredients. These are what they are used as raw materials for a generic drug industry, which is one of the biggest in the country. Now, keeping all these in mind, we know that there are potential benefits for India, and hence IPF might actually be very good for India in the coming future. Further, it concretizes India's position in the Indo-Pacific region. Indo-Pacific region में it provides India with an image that India is a responsible and a robust economy which is ready to provide a good avenue for economic growth as well as investments. But there has to be some challenges. Sab kuch, it's not everything is hunky dory about IPF. There must be something, there must be few things that are challenging. There must be some potential challenges that might come in future, because there are some issues between India and US. There are some issues between Japan and Australia as well. So keeping all these things in mind, what are some of the challenges that IPF might face in the coming future? One major issue is issue of data localization. Our data protection bill, which is still underway in the parliament, pending in the parliament, has some provisions related to data localization. Data localization requires that the data that Facebook and other major big companies acquire in India, they should not be allowed to take it outside India's jurisdiction. Why? Because there are privacy concerns. Now, of course, isko lekar US is not very happy about it. So when we say one of the four pillars is connected economy, this dispute of related to data localization between India and US might be a point of concern, might be a issue that has to be addressed in the future. Then there are environmental and labor standards. US is asking these countries, India including, that we must have high levels of environmental and labor standards. But India is not very ready for it because it will hamper investment flows into India, and India has its comparative advantage with cheap labor एंड लोअर कंप्लायंस बर्डन. ठीक है, तो ये सब चीजें इफेक्ट होंगी अगर आईपीएफ के चैलेंजेस, इन चैलेंजेस को एड्रेस नहीं किया गया. सो दीज आर सम ऑफ द चैलेंजेस दैट माइट कम इन द फ्यूचर, जो आगे के निगोसिएशंस होंगे. रशिया यूक्रेन कॉन्फ्लिक्ट में जो बाकी की क्वाड कंट्रीज हैं, यूएस, जापान एंड ऑस्ट्रेलिया, दे हैव actively criticized Russia's actions, but India has not yet done that. So that can be another point of contention between these countries. It is more unilateral and not consensus based. Again, we have discussed earlier, this is an initiative started by United States of America. We still do not know to what extent other countries have participated in determining the four pillars of this forum. So ये जानने के लिए ये सब चीजें जो है थोड़ा और कंसेंसस बेस्ड इस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, इस फोरम को बनाने की जरूरत है. चाइना इज डिसकंटेंट, चाइना इज नॉट वेरी हैप्पी विद इट. अब चाइना का डिसकंटेंट है तो चाइना माइट देयर कैन बी मोर स्कर्मिशेस. अगर हम क्वाड कंट्रीज को देखें, इंडिया, ऑस्ट्रेलिया, जापान एंड यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका, इंडिया इज द ओनली country that shares a land border with China. Only country out of these four countries, India is the only country that shares a land border with China, and we are already facing some clashes at line of actual control. So agar China is very upset about it, so China might react. That reaction might be first targeted towards India and not the other countries. So these are some of the potential challenges that we might see with IPF coming ahead. Moving on to way forward. What is the way forward? Now we have discussed challenges. There must be some way forward to it. The way forward is nothing. First of all, these negotiations are yet to begin. It is just in the, in an embryonic idea. It will take a major shape after several rounds of negotiations. तो जो भी होगा उसमें what we have to ensure is, तो सबसे पहले तो there must be flexibilities. Countries must be allowed to be, choose as to which pillar they want to be a part of and to which pillar they don't want to be a part of. And more countries, आगे और future में और countries को अगर हम add करेंगे, this forum will become more and more bigger and more powerful as far as the core objectives are concerned. इसको मल्टीलैटरल बनाने की जरूरत है. अभी क्या है, यूएस लाया है अपने यूनिलैटरल कंसर्न्स को फॉरवर्ड करने के लिए, बट इसको धीरे धीरे मल्टीलैटरल बनाना चाहिए ताकि दूसरी कंट्रीज के भी जो कंसर्न्स है उसको इनकॉर्पोरेट किया जा सके उसके अंदर. नेक्स्ट वी फाइंड दैट जो हमारे ऑलरेडी कई सारे इंडो पैसिफिक में प्रोजेक्ट्स है, फॉर एग्जांपल सप्लाई चेन रेजिलियंस इनिशिएटिव, दैट इज इंडिया, जापान एंड ऑस्ट्रेलिया ने चालू किया था. वी हैव ऑलरेडी डिस्कस सप्लाई चेन का रेजिलियंस क्यों इंपॉर्टेंट है. तो वो उसको रेजिलेंट बनाने के लिए वी हैव ऑलरेडी स्टार्टेड एन इनिशिएटिव कॉल्ड SCRI, which is between three countries, India, Japan and Australia. Now that US has come up with IPEF, हम जो SCRI का जो फोरम है, और SCRI and IPEF can be complementary to each other. वैसे ही AAGC करके एशिया अफ्रीका ग्रोथ कॉरिडोर, वेयर इंडिया एंड जापान आर वर्किंग टुवर्ड्स इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपमेंट इन एशिया एज वेल एज अफ्रीका. तो वहां पर US coming into it can be a big booster to this entire project of infrastructure development, which is actually an alternative to BRI of China. Seeing all these things in mind, so we need to include key players. ताइवान जैसे key player को include करना बहुत important है. इस पूरे supply chain में ताइवान is a very important player because semiconductors पर्टिकुलरली सेमीकंडक्टर इंडस्ट्री जो है क्रिटिकल सप्लायर है ताइवान उसका, तो वी नीड टू क्विकली इनकॉर्पोरेट Taiwan into this IPEF, Indo Pacific Economic Forum. Now, finally, the way forward, what we need to do is role of Quad Plus grouping. We need जो Quad Plus हमने अभी डिस्कस किया था ना, वो अभी बस एक आइडिया है, उसको कॉन्क्रेटाइज कर कर उसको एक रियलिटी बनाना चाहिए, so that all these countries can come together, they can push forward their own agenda, and they can further their common interest and tackle their common concerns. That's all for today, guys. This IPF is a very, very important topic. Do like and subscribe. Thank you so much.